Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome here to WCA America 2015. I'm Solid Jake, joined by the Kubi, and we've got some phenomenal Heroes of the Storm action lined up for you today.
That's right, but first let's talk a little bit about what WCA is. Of course, it is the organization that is sponsoring this huge event, the biggest prize pool we have seen for the competitive Heroes of the Storm community. They are putting in $3.8 million in total prizing across the 4 games that they're running. Of course, those games are Crossfire, Heroes of the Storm, which we're going to be casting for you guys today, Hearthstone, and Dota 2. Now, the winners of this event here today are going to be flown out to play in the finals for the Grand Finals event for China. So, also, the runner-up here today is going to fly out to PAX Prime, which is awesome in itself, and they will get another chance to play for that finals in China.
Yeah, Kubi, I mean, there is so much on the line throughout the entire process of this event globally, but here today we have the start of the round of 8 in this event. And we can take a quick look over at the format that we have for the event coming up. We can see that it'll be a best of 3 single elimination format where there's $19,000 in prizing up for grabs. I mean, you mentioned the flight to China. They also get $10,000 if they win. It's $5,000 up for grabs for the second place team, and they go to PAX Prime. We have all 7 maps allowed in today's event. There are no maps banned out, but the teams will strike the maps as we do go into each game.
Yep.
And we do have the top 2 teams advancing to the live finals here in Burbank at the ESL Studios for June 1st, where they will compete for that first place title.
That's right. But before we do that, let's talk about some of those teams that are in each group. Today, we are going to be looking at Group A, which happens to be Cloud9 Vortex, 2Arc Gaming, C9 Maelstrom, and Stellar Lotus. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we're going to be looking at Tempo Storm, Cognitive Gaming, Zevron, and Complexity. Jake, but let's talk about what is going to be in the bracket for today.
Well, of course, you mentioned we have that third column there, and those teams are going to be trying to fight to earn their way into the semifinals. And today we have 4 of those teams competing. Starting off the day, we have Cloud9 Vortex versus 2Arc Gaming. Following that, we have Cloud9 Maelstrom versus Stellar Lotus. But Kubi, let's talk a little bit more about Vortex versus 2Arc.
That's right. Those 2 teams actually have squared off quite a few times, even more recently in the ESL Major League NA, and they had quite the back-and-forth series. It was a 2-1, really close, a ton of adaptations between the 2 teams. We saw a lot of crazy play with the bans they were using, the maps that ended up being picked, and even some of the strategies, a more aggressive strategy picked for 2Arc.
I mean, it's really cool stuff seeing them face off like that. I can't wait to see the games today. The draft is almost ready. But Kubi, we got some social media on the table.
That's right. We want you guys to get on Twitter. Please use the hashtag WCA 2015. Tweet at WCA_America. Tweet at us, the Kubi, and Solid Jake GG. We want to know what you guys' predictions are for this series. This is the biggest event we've had so far for competitive heroes, and we want to hear what you guys have to say about it.
All right, guys, the draft is ready. The teams are anxious to get going here in the first game of today, and we can see that we are, in fact, playing on Dragonshire.
That's right. This has been, I think, notoriously a very good map for 2Arc Gaming. I'm not sure if we have Tomb of the Spider Queen in the pool that's available to pick for Cloud9 Vortex, at least, because we know traditionally they have a very strong record on that map as well.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's possible that 2Arc did strike that out because, like you mentioned, Cloud9 is very strong on Tomb of the Spider Queen. But here on Dragonshire, 2Arc does have that first pick and that first ban. Do you think they'll ban out Illidan because of how strong Vortex is, or do you think something else might be on the table?
The last time that we saw Vortex running up against 2Arc, Illidan was picked in 2 out of those 3 games. Of course, that was a 2-1 series, very back and forth. So if 2Arc knows that Vortex is going to be relying on that type of strategy, why not go ahead and ban out the Illidan? Another interesting thing to note is that Vortex, all 3 games, banned out Tyrael. They respect the fact, they understand that 2Arc knows that hero in and out, and they want to take that away. So 2Arc can take that knowledge and run with it and manipulate the bans and what the order of the hero picks are going to be.
Yeah, they're thinking hard a lot about this first ban. Dragonshire, there's many options that they just might. It really comes down to playstyle, how they want to tackle their opponents. What do they want to eliminate? Do they eliminate the Vikings? Do they eliminate the strong damage dealers like Jaina or Vala? They stick to something like Illidan, where he's just that big, powerful melee assassin. we might, I mean, they're really thinking hard about this. The timer is actually down to 23 seconds.
Yeah, so the other thing to mention, of course, too, is the aggressive tendency that Vortex is known for, but we saw the adaptation from 2Arc Gaming in that last series. They also opted to take a very, very aggressive stance in terms of what heroes they picked. We saw Kerrigan picked up at least twice in that series paired with ETC, and of course, I think the third game that they played out, they had the Diablo, the Tyrande, and Jaina combo, which is also leads itself to have a ton of aggression.
All right, I'm actually going to refresh this very quickly just to see if there has been a bug, because this is actually quite uncommon to see the time pool go out. We might actually have to just confirm with the teams whether or not the draft is actually functioning properly, because sometimes this can happen. We use an out-of-client tool to perform these drafts in-game. I'm just going to make sure everything is good and dandy.
Absolutely. So we're talking a little bit about that aggressive playstyle. To go a little bit more into it, is how is Kerrigan going to be picked up in this draft? Who is going to be sort of prioritizing a little bit more? 2Arc was able to pick Kerrigan up fairly early in the draft both times. I find that pretty interesting. It was a strange pickup for us when we saw that, but she's starting to get a little bit more commonly picked in the meta just because it seems as though a lot of the teams are getting more inclined to the aggressive playstyle early on, especially to get that early lead before level 10.
All right, well, we do have a new draft ready to roll. There was a small hiccup, but here we go. Vortex, in fact, does have the first pick, first ban. Small error in the actual draft that was created. Okay. And it looks like Tyrande is going to be banned out by Vortex. This is actually quite interesting.
It is. So this is very much a running away from what we saw in that previous series between the two teams. Vortex was very adamant about banning out that Tyrael. Perhaps now they either feel comfortable taking Tyrael themselves or in general playing against it.
In a lot of ways, the Tyrande ban can almost force your enemy team to ban Illidan, because Tyrande is such a strong counter to Illidan as a whole. With Vikings being banned out, I almost guarantee that they do end up picking up Illidan here.
It makes a lot of sense. There's a ton of ways now to build your team around the Illidan pick if they decide to go for this. We've seen Brightwing picked up. Okay, all right, so they opt to go for the heavy damage output. Jaina was actually banned out in 2 out of the 3 games in the previous series between these two guys as well, by 2Arc. So either 2Arc knew something about Vortex's playstyle and that they're just very comfortable with Jaina and they get a ton of value out of her rotations early game, which is what we would expect to see general playstyle for Vortex. So they get the opportunity to pick Jaina up, they do so right away.
Now, if you are 2Arc Gaming, is this your opportunity to just go with Illidan, just pick up Illidan Uther? If you do go with Illidan, do you think having Uther or Rhaegar early is a requirement?
Or Brightwing.
Or Brightwing,
okay. So we have seen Brightwing picked up in the past strictly to be, okay, and there's that early Kerrigan pick that I was talking about. This is really cool to see. So 2Arc still sticking to the same mantra. They really want to make sure that they have that early game aggression, especially in Dragonshire. There's a lot of interesting ways to play this. Kerrigan by herself, of course, has that very devastating combo that is difficult to get away from that Ravage into the Primal Grasp, into the Impale. A ton of CC time. She's stunned out for a very long time. If she has one damage dealer with her rotating around, she can wreak havoc and get a huge experience lead for their team.
And yeah, by seeing Kerrigan as their first pick, they're immediately saying, we're going to have a very aggressive early game. Yeah. You're going to see them rotating primarily between the bottom and the middle lane, trying to pick off as many kills as possible, because the distance between those two lanes is very close, and the minions come at a slightly different time. Bottom lane is quite a little bit shorter in terms of distance, so those minions take a little bit longer to travel. But they are going to go with Vala as their second damage dealer, picking up 2 assassins to start the draft.
The other thing to mention too about the Kerrigan pick is that it is well known that Vortex really likes to run Kerrigan as well. But aside from all that, what do we have here? And that is the Tyrael pickup. And I actually mentioned this beforehand, so they're not banning Tyrael out. Right. They might even feel comfortable playing Tyrael.
That's the snipe, because 2Arc is, like, Tyrael fell out of the meta for a very long time. Tyrael was actually considered to be like a subpar warrior for every team except for 2Arc. 2Arc just always leaned towards him. They had great utility with him, and they're known for their Tyrael play, but the snipe is quite cool to see.
Yes, and there's a ton of potential with Uther as well. We have to say he's one of the stronger supports in the meta. Divine Shield has picked up a ton of steam over the past month or so with that recent patch. Okay, hold on. 2Arc getting even more of an aggressive lineup. That's a lot of control for Illidan. If they choose to have any of these combination of heroes in that early game rotation, I'm sure they can make it work.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking a double frontline assassin team already. Now, Illidan, very much the damage dealer, but he can be very hard to eliminate. He has a kit that just makes him very hard to take off the battlefield, and they can do a lot of things like this. We've even seen teams trying to make Illidan the warrior for their team and just picking a composition that doesn't even have one. Do you think that's on the table here on this map?
It's certainly possible. We've seen that grabbed with Abathur. The map size, it could make it work. I think that we might be more likely to see something to that nature on Cursed Hollow, maybe Garden of Terror. They could still run that style, though, very much so, if they just copy the Illidan. And that is something in the past we've seen is quite difficult to deal with. I would expect right now they will likely lock in their support. Brightwing is a possibility if they want to try to rule out the possibility for Cloud9 Vortex to pick up that double support, just to have that extra control. They would be lacking a bit in damage, but it would go wonders to deal with Illidan.
All right, well, we're going to see pretty soon they're dipping into that bonus time pool. Typically, though, when we see Illidan picked, if he has a warrior with him, the best two options are going to be Diablo and ETC, just because of the ability they have to get far forward. But with Tassadar being picked up, they don't have a main support now. Tassadar is a middle-of-the-road half support. We call him a pseudo support in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And this is straight up telling Vortex that they do intend to run with Illidan as their tank, because they cannot exist as a team in a map like Dragonshire without picking up a full-on support.
Very good point. So Vortex, now they have to look at this information and say, what is the best thing that we can do to take advantage of this? Without a tank, that might afford Tyrael a little bit more opportunity to dive in. And if they can pick the correct target, Vortex of course, and eliminate him quickly, that might lead me to think that Falstad or something else in the burst range, that's certainly an option.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options on the table already. This is very risky in a lot of ways for Tuark to be picking just Illidan, because we talked about Tyrael having his presence with Judgment to go in and eliminate a target, but if Illidan goes in behind enemy lines, Uther has the stun, Judgment can be used by Tyrael, and then Jaina, she has more burst than any other hero in the game. But the one thing that's really going nicely for Tuark right now is the fact that Tyrande cannot be picked. She has been banned, so he doesn't have to worry about the Lunar Flare Hunter Mark combo.
All right, so they are dipping into that bonus pool. What is going to be the DPS follow-up? So you mentioned the half support sort of being taken out of the pool. Yes, Sylvanas, another hero that has been very much so in the meta, and I want to say Cloud9 Vortex they took Sylvanas in all 3 games against Tuark the last time they played. So that will very likely be fan on Sylvanas, and they actually rounded out with a double warrior comp.
Man, there are so many stuns, so much lockdown available for Vortex. When Illidan dives in and Kerrigan dives in, there's quite a few responses available, so it's going to be dicey each and every time they choose to commit. But now they need to lock in some form of support. They have Tassadar, he's got the healing ward, he has the shields, he's got a fair amount of sustainability, but they need something more like Rhaegar or Brightwing to assist with this composition.
Are you feeling more along the lines of burst heal to try to keep Illidan alive? That would mean that they would have to pick up Rhaegar, they'll get the additional healing ward, and they'll have the ancestral healing to keep Illidan alive. Or are you thinking that they need to go for more overall sustained HP, maybe something like Malfurion?
Malfurion could be quite nice here, but I honestly like Brightwing the best just because of Polymorph.
Okay.
When Brightwing gets in that front line, if she can hit those big Emerald wins, displace the enemy team, it doesn't matter how many stuns they have available, it's going to allow Kerrigan and Illidan to just jump to one target and eliminate it very quickly, but they are going to opt to go for Rhaegar. Now, Rhaegar has the Ancestral Healing, Rhaegar has that Lightning Shield to provide a little bit of additional damage, but doesn't necessarily have the control with Emerald Wind or Polymorph.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So they have put a ton of eggs into this Illidan basket, and I'm a little bit concerned in the sense that they might, I don't know, just like if you are able to control and eliminate Illidan right out of the fight right away, they have the Tyrael, they have the control in that sense to initiate the fight, and if he's pulled out immediately in that fight, that could spell trouble for Tuark. I'm not sure how they're going to play around that in terms of the team fighting.
We're going to find out. I mean, this is a very interesting composition. Illidan as their warrior in the front line, but also having Kerrigan. If they hit those big combos, they can really secure quick, easy kills. But the pickup on Muradin, providing the additional just lockdown, sustain utility. And Muradin, we talk about in terms of having the stuns and the sustain. He also has the mobility, the dwarf toss to get in and out of fights when needed. But Kubi, my question for you about Muradin is, do you think we could see Stormbolt in this matchup? Or Haymaker,
yes,
excuse me.
Okay, yeah, so Haymaker is something that has not really been in the meta too much as of late, but it does provide, so yeah, if you have that second control, that's a lot of stun that you can throw down with the Judgment going in, and that might provide the opportunity for Muradin to jump over through the back line, isolate a target with Haymaker. It's absolutely possible. I'm guessing that they're just going for this mass-style CC lockdown. That is sort of, use the Avatar with the CC 0.25 seconds on every single auto attack. They have the Judgment. They have the silence, the stuns that Uther can provide. He'll be useful whether he ends up going Divine Shield or Storm. Very nice.
All right, well, on the blue side of the map, we do have Cloud9 Vortex with Bobby Hankhill on Muradin. Fan will be playing Jaina. But before we can introduce, the teams are already in each other's face. Panucci going forward with the flank with the Primal Grasp, but not going to get what she wants to do. The damage is coming out on both sides. Quibsy has to back out on Illidan, trying to get the safety, and it's going to be a successful disengage for everyone except for, oh my goodness, the Primal Grasp actually buy time for Chubbs. He does get away.
Okay, so I realized, all right, before we get into that, we do need to get to introducing the other team. Of course, on the right side of the map, this is going to be 2Arc Gaming. Furious D is going to be on Tassadar, Chubbs on Rhaegar. Top side, we do have, Syracuse? Quibsy is going to be on Illidan. And in the middle lane, we do have Vala being played by Trader. Okay, so big thing to talk about in that last fight, of course, was, did you see what happened to Illidan? If this is any sort of tell as to how the rest of the fights are going to go, they picked him out as a target, they dropped his HP very low, and they're relying so much on the fact that, yes, they can go in with Panucci on Kerrigan and get those stuns to lock down and get control for Illidan, but if he gets singled out and isolated in terms of his HP and he has to back off earlier, if he gets picked off, that might spell a huge amount of trouble for 2Arc.
Yeah, and we mentioned in the draft that we expected to see a lot of aggression out of the red team 2Arc because they had the Kerrigan. But suddenly, Kerrigan is sitting in lane, is constantly being forced back. Every time she pokes her head out, she realizes that she's actually in a terrible situation. So they did a really nice job drafting against that Kerrigan first pick, but it doesn't mean that they can't get those early kills. That's true for both sides.
Okay, let's take a look at some of these talents. Actually, yeah, another thing to mention, of course, we see Muradin picking up that Reverberation talent at level 1. That means that his Thunderclap is going to throw down that AoE area that will slow the attack speed, but hold on a second. Panucci perhaps got in a bit of trouble. Nope, okay. Both teams are sort of just poking at each other. We're not going to see a heavy engagement just yet. Yeah, okay, but back to that Reverberation. That is sort of a very anti-Illidan tech. He relies so much on having the trait with his lifesteal and his auto attack just to keep himself alive when he's in those precarious situations, right? So if you have that attack speed slow already at level 1, that's a crazy amount of control, and I like the Muradin pick just for that ability alone.
And he's continuing to go down that path. He's going to pick up Thunderburn here at level 4. And that's going to help out even further. But let's just talk a little bit about the map itself. This map is called Dragonshire, and there are 2 points at each point of the map. We have the Sun Temple and the Moon Temple. Each respectively will power up the Dragonite. Now you have to control both of them at once in order to gain the powers of this Dragonite, which is essentially a lot of siege capability that will allow you to push down the lanes and dish out a severe amount of damage to your enemy team's structures.
All right, so how is each team going to make use of their compositions to get that objective, which, as you mentioned, is so strong at pushing out those lanes? I'm noticing at level 4 we see the double Envenom with Sylvanas and Jaina. That points to a huge amount of aggression. So look to see those 2 heroes perhaps getting a bit of rotation. I know we see Sylvanas providing that control for the top lane, trying to get that Shrine. Quibsy looking to take an early Bruiser camp on his side of the map. That will afford them a bit of extra pressure in the top lane that will very likely need to be responded to by an additional hero.
Yeah, that's one thing that Illidan just excels in so much, but the Primal Grasp connected with 2 targets, Tazza and Ziggs, will both need to fall back, but Zix is getting quite low. Illidan is so good at chasing, and he does succeed in doing just that, picking up the first kill of the game.
Wow, they're making this warrior-less comp so far. It's looking pretty strong. Are they going to be able to hold this type of aggression out through the mid lane to deal with this fan actually getting caught with the Primal Grasp? The Impale isn't quite there, but it's not needed. Quibzy able to follow up, get the kill. This might actually be enough control to warrant 2Arc Gaming the first Dragon Knight of the game.
Yeah, they were very close to being able to get that, but we have that rotation into the middle lane by both Syracuse, Bobby Hinkle, and Taza. Now, we saw the Haunting Wave go out for Sylvanas to back out of that situation, but it's not going to be enough. They zone, and Quibzy picks up the first Dragon Knight.
The Wave of Light from Uther was just not quite there. It almost reached him in time, probably down to like the last frame. Quibzy is able to pick up this Dragon Knight. It's very likely that we'll be able to see the towers picked up on either side, and then a rotation from the Dragon Knight to the bottom lane, perhaps, just to pick up this extra experience. This will net them a very nice boost in that experience. In that race to level 10, we can already see that they're almost a level ahead of Cloud9 Vortex.
Yeah, that's a big deal, and as they continue to power through these structures, that will help them out nicely. The punt has to be used to try to make some room here for Pernucci, and the rotation from the team is here. Primal Grasp connecting with both Taza and Zix. Will it be enough? No, Taza has the shields on him, and he will be able to get to safety.
That protective shield was so clutch from Uther to keep Taza alive, of course, on Tyrael. Yeah, but that punt was very nicely set up. That's just such a huge positioning tool to control where enemy members in the fight. It just takes a quick rotation from the rest of the members that were pushing down that mid lane to rotate down. As you mentioned, the lanes are quite close between mid and bottom of this map, which can set up some crazy situations, and you have more control of those situations with that Dragon Knight.
Well, after the Dragon Knight does in fact expire, that is going to make it so the mercenary camps are once again available on the map. Quibzy is on the job immediately, hopping back to pick up their giants here in the backside, but it looks like they're looking for that rotation in the middle.
Okay, Quibzy actually getting isolated. Is he going to be able to get out? Does he have the support from his team? He's able to use his kit to use his abilities to get out onto the creep wave. He's getting the last second heals, the shields, and Taza might be overextended trying to pick up that kill. This is Quibzy's moment to go in. He's actually going to back out, and it looks as though a pretty even trade. A lot of damage dealt from either side, but no kills were picked up.
Yeah, Rhaegar using his full kit there, getting the heal out, getting the lightning shield off to make sure that he stays alive. Nicely done, but we do have that level 10 in a full level lead for 2Arc. They're getting aggressive in the jungle. They're pushing Zix off these giant camps, and the reason they can be so aggressive right now is that heroic advantage.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about some of the talents that have been picked up for 2Arc. We, of course, have the Archon on Tassadar, Metamorphosis for Illidan, that Ancestral Healing. That's going to be a big turning point for a lot of the fights, so watch for that green aura, and then the HP bar to fill up almost completely within a flash. Kerrigan grabbing that Maelstrom for the AoE damage output and increased shields to keep her alive, and the Strafe, again, more AoE damage for Vala.
But as soon as we get done reading those off, we actually have the heroics available on the other side. Cloud9 is catching up. They've got the Water Elemental, Divine Storm, Avatar for Muradin, the Wailing Arrow for Sylvanas, that's an AoE silence, and Judgment, giving Tyrael that crazy initiation when he sees a moment of opportunity.
You know what all of this points to from Vortex? All of their heroics that were picked up just lock down Illidan. If Illidan dives in a little bit too far, you have Hammer of Justice from Uther, Divine Storm, Avatar with all those auto attacks, the microstuns, the silence, the judgment. How is Illidan going to stay alive through any of that? That's what I want. I want to see how 2Arc has crafted and practiced this type of strategy to stay alive in the adversity of a composition that has an insane amount of stuns and control.
A lot of it's going to come down to responsive stuns from Kerrigan and big ancestral heals from that Rhaegar. We'll see if they are able to do it, but that lead has all been but negated. It's pretty much dead even at this point in time, and we actually have Cloud9 Vortex getting aggressive with that Sylvanas. Her trait allows her to lock down turrets, lock down the forts, and prevent them from even firing upon you.
Absolutely, we can see that there with the fort. It's got that blackened tint to it. That means it cannot fire back. They are not taking any damage, as you might expect them to when you're pressing onto these forts in the bottom lane. They are going to back up because they can sense that rotation from the rest of the members of 2Arc. Quibzy is now forward in this position, but again, you have to watch Quibzy and see how many of the stuns from Vortex are going to be thrown down onto him. There is the judgment.
That very early Ancestral Heal was used in that fight, and Kerrigan did miss her full combo. Maelstrom not going to be enough to keep her alive. The Wailing Arrow seals the deal, but that Strafe in the backside is doing so much to Cloud9 Vortex. Quibzy has been able to live through all of this, and at this point, only Kerrigan has fallen. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of 2Arc. Taza going to be the third to fall. No, he gets through with that, and the heal from Uther is going to keep him alive for the moment. Trader is on the job. There's chasing going left and right, but it looks like Tyrael will be the third to fall.
Oh my goodness. So it's kind of crazy when you look back at that fight as to what happened, what was like the big difference maker. I noticed the silence immediately. It hit so many of the members. Tassadar was just barely able to stay alive. But the big thing was, it seems, we've mentioned a lot that they have these AoE abilities, right? They throw Illidan and they have Kerrigan with the Maelstrom. But the big thing, of course, is that they saved Strafe so late in the fight, and it really did a huge job. It was hitting at least 4 members of Cloud9 Vortex the entire duration of the strafe, and that's just so much damage to deal with. And yes, there's a lot of stuns, but it kind of seemed like Vortex almost just ran out of gas in terms of being able to output the stun capability to deal with Vala.
Yeah, it almost looked like they had no concern for Vala. They're like, all right, if we kill Kerrigan or Illidan, we're good, right? No, it didn't pan out for him, but this allows Tuark to get a second Dragonite in a row. It's 5-1 in terms of kills, 2 Dragonites to 0, and that's why we can see the full level lead about to push a second one, and that's even a talent advantage right now.
Absolutely. Bobby Hankill diving in with Hazza.
Oh, not going to be enough. Kerrigan does end up falling there. The Ancestral was just a few seconds too short, and the Wailing Arrow connects with 4 targets of Tuark. This is disastrous. They need to leave immediately, and they are in full-on retreat. Fortunately, all 3 of them have a lot of mobility to escape. They'll be able to live another day, but this is Cloud9's time to get aggressive with that damage.
Yeah, they need to back up and try to... they have the Giants that are pushing down in this lane. Okay, I like that they're opting to take this forward. This won't net them an immediate advantage. We'll work to sort of bring back the gap in the experience between the 2 teams. As you can see, they're almost at level 14. But they really need to try to set themselves up something that they can push with down the line. They do have Vala dead for another 3 seconds or so. What is going to be the objective that they choose to try to highlight here to move forward?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. There are no more mercenary camps available on the map. It's a lot of just waiting around for those next shrines to spawn. Now, both teams, they're going to try to posture for one. They're going to try to clean up those mercenary camps. We can actually see Tuark right now working on these Giants, and Cloud9, they're starting on those Bruisers that we saw picked up for the top lane.
I still can't believe how forward and aggressive of a composition Tuark has. It's just everything about it is just dive in, and it speaks total confidence to their ability to play. And you can see that they're ahead, and they're already pushing down to this keep wall. I can't believe it. There's very little safety net, and everything about it is just we need to be confident in our team fights, pick the right targets, go in and deal the damage that they can't respond to.
So far, so good for them. They're sitting a little bit ahead, but they're even leaning towards that even more. Rhaegar picks up that Feral Lunge, and we even have the sprint here for Kerrigan. So that's going to allow Kerrigan to be a little bit more cheeky with her plays. She can go forward, lay down that combo, and then sprint away if she absolutely needs to, just being a little bit more utility than pure damage.
Mm-hmm. Rotations very much so on point for Tuark. They keep just picking spots on the map, getting there just a little bit ahead of Vortex. During all of this, of course, the shrines have spawned, but there's a lot to respond to. We see this Bruiser camp is commanding a ton of attention from Vortex. How does Tuark plan to continue holding this lead? They are, of course, very close to level 16, which is a big turning point for Tuark to be able to pick fights. As it is right now, both the teams are on the same talent tier, roughly about the same fighting power. But once 16 hits, they get the slight stat boost from hitting that level, but more importantly, get those 16 talents.
Tuark tried to get a little bit aggressive there onto the Tyrael, but Tyrael does judgment forward. We have the Ancestral keeping our Kerrigan alive, but Trader in the backline is just receiving the brunt force and will end up falling. But Illidan, he's the problem. He's going to try to eliminate Ziggs. He's getting very low. Panucci gets the combo, but not going to be enough to stay alive. But Ziggs is so low, 3-1 in terms of kills at this point in time, and there's no heals left for Illidan, and he will end up falling.
All of that was strictly a positioning thing. There wasn't so much that Tuark had picked a bad fight, but they got collapsed upon, and Tassadar was in the bottom lane capturing the shrine. He wasn't present for almost more than half of that fight. 4v5s at this caliber of play between these kind of top teams, it's never going to go in your favor, and that's why we see that huge 4-1 kill differential for Cloud9 Vortex.
Well, that's going to net Cloud9. Their first Dragonite of the game. Fan will be happy to hop inside and drive it down this middle lane, where they can put pressure on the middle fort. At this point in time, in terms of structures, we have a slight advantage for Tuark, but this should even things out.
Absolutely. Furistein needs to be careful with how much he's poking, trying to get that damage back. All right, so let's take a look. Both the teams, or at least Vortex, is backing up. They just want to make sure that they can clear out the waves, push things forward, try to reset the position. They've sort of been playing from behind for a good chunk of this game. This is the first time they've found themselves in the experience lead. They just want to try to reset things, get it back to neutral, and we have the level 16 talents. You see anything interesting, Jake?
Yeah, I do, Kubi. I see quadruple blood for blood. Now, that's 15% life steal on a maximum hero's health pool. So if you have doesn't matter what your health pool is at, it's going to be 15% of your total health pool.
Yeah.
4 of those at once, that's 60% of any hero in the game.
Yeah. On top of that, of course, the additional slow and the lifesteal, that is a crazy talent to be stacking up 4 times. The interesting thing about it is that a lot of the fights we see Muradin leap over to the target that's going to get judgment, but that provides a lot of control in the sense that he's knocking back the targets that are nearby. So Tuark is going to have to really make sure that the positioning is good in the sense that they're not too close to get knocked back so that they can apply all 4 blood for bloods. I'm going to guess it's going to be on Muradin, as he'd be likely the hardest target to kill. Tyrael with that lower HP pool. And once you pull that front line out, that gets terrifying.
It
for
really
Vortex.
does. It really does. And they've got so many melee heroes on top of it. So cool to see that panning out, but the other side, they've got double blood for blood. They do have the benediction, and that's going to give Uther a second stun. So this is going to give them even more control over that battlefield, and even the numbing blast. It's a 1-second AoE cone that will root you.
Yeah, as long as the target is chilled, which with the water elemental, most likely they will be. So I'm really anxious to see how these fights are going to play out now. And we talked about how impactful the level 16 talents are. This is why, because you get so much more utility.
Well, the teams, the quest is to hit level 20, get those final talents of the game. Both teams just playing relatively passively, going for those mercenary camps, pushing across the map and trying to soak experience the best they can. But Cloud9 has taken that experience lead.
Yes, they absolutely have. But it kind of seems as though in terms of mercenary camps and pressure, Tuark is still leading the way. I find that particularly interesting. Maybe this means that Vortex doesn't feel comfortable picking a fight until they hit level 20. If that's the case, I'm looking to see them just play even more passively, continue to soak. But still, the Dragon Knight's going to be up within the next minute or so, and they're going to have to fight at some point to get some control over that. As the game goes on, 15, 20 minutes into the game, the Dragon Knights scale more heavily with time, of course, but the damage output just gets insane, and it's so hard to deal with that, especially when they're wailing away on your keeps. It's almost as if you put all of your DPS onto that dragon target, he's going to get a keep either way.
Yeah, it's quite scary how powerful the objectives become in this game, but that is the name of the game.
Yes.
Just another 6 seconds before those shrines do become active in the top and bottom of the map, and we can see that we do have heavy aggression towards the middle for both teams right now.
Right, okay, it looks as though Tuark is going to get control of the bottom shrine. Jaina was thinking about going for the top shrine, wasn't aware exactly of how many members from Tuark had rotated up. So right now, shrine control is in favor of Tuark. How does Vortex respond?
Now, Illidan isn't quite there in the battle yet, so Tuark has to be very careful. A window of opportunity might have been missed at that moment for Cloud9 Vortex, but Illidan, he's moving in, he's looking for that target. Tazza has already taken a fair amount of damage, and Trader's just pushing forward, but there's the Judgment going in. The Ancestral will be used onto Panucci to try to keep him alive, but Trader is getting blown up. The heals come out just in a moment of time, but Jaina's going to be the first one to fall on the side of Cloud9. This is going to make it so hard for them to eliminate Tuark, and that's just going to allow Trader to back up on Vala and pick up the Dragon Knight.
Smart play. She has the lowest HP pool of the remaining members. This allows them to continue pushing even further. I was looking for the huge blow up with the Blood for Bloods. I never saw it. They ended up splitting a few of them onto Tazza, but seemingly it was providing enough control. Tazza had to back up, losing a huge chunk of his HP in that quick amount of time. It wasn't quite all of them, but still, taking out that Jaina, that's a huge amount of their DPS in their fights. But like you said, smartly so, they backed up. Zix applying that clean cleanse to himself.
Yeah, nicely done. Just staying alive. Cleanse will prevent you from being rooted or stunned in any way, shape, or form, completely negating the combo of Kerrigan. But the Dragon Knight's damage has been done. The bottom keep has been destroyed, and that means there will be catapults pushing down this bottom lane for the duration of the game.
Yes, and more importantly, level 20 has been hit for Tuark. This might afford them the opportunity to take another team fight if they want to try to go for the end of the game, but Kerrigan is picked off immediately. That is the stun control that we were looking to see from Vortex.
Yeah,
there's the judgment.
Yeah, when Kerrigan falls, you need to back up. That's why they're getting aggressive onto Quibsy. We can see he is heavily slowed at this point in time, and the combos are coming out. Ancestral not quite going to reach in time. Chubbs can't pop into wolf form to get out of this, but the Dragonite has been ignored, and Trader is just sacrificing himself to wail away on this. He can try to back up, but it's going to be very risky, and oh my goodness, they managed to catch it.
Yeah, we saw Jaina actually sprinted forward to get that combo. They realized they had the hero advantage. The Dragon is pushing over in the mid lane. They say, you have 2 heroes left. We are not scared of doing this. Obviously, Jaina is going to more often than not use the sprint as a defensive measure. But in this case, they knew they could pick up more hero kills. This affords them more opportunity. They still have 20 seconds before even Kerrigan gets back up, and it's 30 before the other two do. They can do a ton of damage here, and we see them doing just that, going to the bottom keep.
They're going to try to end the game here. Now, this is the power of Sylvanas. She can lock down those towers, but she cannot lock down the core. They're going to try to end the game. The Wailing Arrow does connect, but that is going to be a fallen hero on the side of Cloud9. Now that Panucci is back in there, he pops that Maelstrom, going forward with the combo, and I believe that Cloud9 has overcommitted. 3 have fallen, only 2 remain, and that's going to be Zix and Bobby both falling, and they only got the core to 73%.
That is just an unfortunate call. I think that they just maybe overestimated their damage output a little bit. They had quite a bit going for them in the form of Jaina. She now can hit the buildings and apply that trait to get the extra damage output, but it just wasn't quite enough. And of course, this huge window of opportunity of 30 seconds that 2Arc will be able to just march across the map. They already have the keep down in the bottom lane. I think that's going to be game number 1 for 2Arc Gaming.
It's looking like it. They're going to try to end here the Metamorphosis onto the core to just give him the positioning to be forward like that. Uther does Hearth back. He did not fall. He fell, but he had the Resurrection from Redemption, that level 20 talent to stay alive, but the core is dropping rapidly down to 50%. We see that the game is just about to end, and 2Arc will take the series starting at 1-0.
Crazy, crazy game between these two teams. I would expect nothing less. I think it's going to be one of the real exciting series between these two guys. So I think one of the real big talking points about that is that they had a huge fight right at the end. Like, they showed that they had a lot of control, especially with the judgment. The follow-ups were there. They blew up Kerrigan immediately with the Divine Storm. All of that control was really culminating, especially past level 20. I really just would have liked to have seen them. I mean, of course, hindsight is 20/20. They should have backed up.
Right.
They shouldn't have gone on the core, but it looked like they were sort of figuring out how to deal with 2Arc in those team fights. And I think they just should have rode that momentum a little bit more, one more fight, and they would have absolutely been able to take the game from there. Just a slight miscall in going for the core. They got fairly close, and of course 2Arc cleaning that up. They were able to just go run across the map and take the game.
I mean, that's how close these teams are. One small mistake can cost you the game. We have 2Arc taking a but a nice clean 1-0 advantage, but this is a best of 3 series, guys. We're going to get ready for game number 2, so stay with us. We'll be back in just a few. What is up, guys? Welcome back here to WCA America 2015. I'm Solid Jake, joined by the Kubi.
That's right. Man, what a crazy game one we had between 2Arc Gaming and Cloud9 Vortex. I expected nothing less, of course. These guys had a crazy series just 1 week prior in the ESL NA Major League. So, all right, let's. Do we have the draft up? I think we can just hop right into game number 2. Let's take a look at what these two teams are setting up.
And look at this. We have Vortex once again banning out Tyrande. They feel very strongly that just removing Tyrande from the equation is the right thing to do, but I like the adaptation. Out of 2Arc, they're opting to ban Uther, and they get the first pick on Vikings.
I could talk for days about why Vikings is so important on this map. Of course, if you guys aren't aware, Lost Vikings are 3 separately controlled heroes by that one person, right? So you can split the Vikings between 3 lanes, and this allows the rest of the team to go forward, take a ton of map control, control the objective, etc. You get a huge amount of soak, that experience lead. It lends itself so well on this map, especially where the objectives are popping up all over the place. Your team has a ton of rotation ability.
But I like the response of Cloud9. So they go for Sylvanas and Jaina. These 2 heroes are just phenomenal at pushing them. The last game, we saw how powerful Jaina can be just in her damage. And Sylvanas, she locks down the structure. She locks down the minions. She's phenomenal at pushing. This is negating a little bit of the potential that could exist with them pushing forward.
Yeah, the other big thing, of course, is that we have seen in the past teams get very aggressive on this map in particular with the Vikings. They have the Vikings once again split, soaking all of the lanes, and then the one lane goes, like, say, to the top lane. They have Sylvanas shutting down the towers. It's an insane amount of push that you can have super early on in the game. Jake's throwing his hands up. What do we see? We have the Vala Kerrigan. Once again.
Now, in the last game, we had Vala, Kerrigan, Illidan. Those were the 3 assassins on the table for 2Arc. The focus is everywhere. Kerrigan can be locking down people, setting up combos, and just finding a target to eliminate, while Vala's in the backline dishing out ridiculous damage with things like Strafe. But the response is here for Vortex. They pick up Brightwing and Illidan. This is quite a good start for them.
Yes, 2Arc was able to make a very nice working of Kerrigan and Illidan, but it doesn't think that it would be a very likely pickup considering that they already have 3 damage dealers. They're going to have to pick up support and a warrior. So this is really more speaking to Vortex says, we want Illidan, we're going to make it work. We have a huge amount of damage output, especially single target, and chase potential is absolutely there.
All right, Kobe, this is actually just kind of getting ridiculous. There is no tank on the table again. They don't have Illidan this time. They decide, Kerrigan, she has combos, but she's quite squishy. She has a little bit of shielding she can provide for herself, but they're going with a double support. Now Tassadar, he's got the healing ward, he's got the shield, and Rhaegar, he's got healing, he's got the chain heal, he's got the ancestral heal, but there's still no warrior. That's a very weak front line.
With the exception of Kerrigan, all of these heroes can kind of take care of themselves in the sense. Yes, if they get a lot of chain CCs applied to them, but Vala can vault out. Vikings have that second HP bar with the Longboat Raid. Tassadar, of course, with the Prescience build, with the Dimensional Warp like we saw last game. It's very difficult to lock down some of these heroes. They can sort of make this work without a warrior, right? So, interesting plays. Final pickup for Vortex was ETC. That pairs very nicely with Illidan, of course, his trait applying that 20% attack speed bonus to Illidan. He relies so much and gets so much of his momentum out of having those auto attacks, the lifesteal on it. He can do work if he has ETC backing him up.
Yeah, everything about their composition is just so very strong. Brightwing is a counter and a complement to Illidan, and we've seen time and time again where Brightwing gets in the front line, she casts that Emerald Wind, it displaces the enemy team, and Illidan just goes in. He just finds that one target that's been secluded and eliminates them very quickly. We call him the janitor because he just cleans up team fights, and he's so very good at it.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think without further ado, we'll try to get game number 2 running between 2Arc Gaming and Cloud9 Vortex here on Cursed Hollow.
Yeah, the game is loading up. This is the second game of this best of 3 series. If you win 2 games, you do in fact advance to the semifinals, which will be happening this Wednesday, just 2 days from now.
Absolutely. So how do you think that the team fights are going to play out differently between Kerrigan and Illidan not being on the same composition for 2Arc?
You can look at it two ways. On one hand, there's not two melee assassins in the front line, so it's easier for them to find a single target, pick it out, and eliminate it very quickly. But on the other hand, there's not as many stuns on the side for Cloud9 Vortex.
Very good points indeed. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about that I'm really excited about this event is we've noticed a lot of the teams have really been holding their strategies, and it's really cool to see that 2Arc, above all, has just been saying, we don't need a warrior. But let's not delay the introductions here. On the left side for 2Arc Gaming, we have Trader on the Lost Vikings. In the middle lane, we have Quibsy on Vala. Furious D is going to be playing Tassadar. And in the bottom lane, Panucci on Kerrigan. Chubbs rounding it out, playing that support role on Rhaegar.
Now, on the right side, that is in fact going to be Cloud9 Vortex, and Taz is trying to body block these minions here in the top lane to just slow them down a little bit. But in the mid, it's a lot of aggression. Brightwing putting down those drones. That's going to be played by Zix. We have Syracuse on Sylvanas. Fan playing Illidan, and rounding out the team is going to be Bobby Hank Hill on Jaina.
I like the scouting drone pickup for Brightwing. I think that speaks a lot to how, not necessarily afraid, but they're respecting the rotation potential from 2Arc, especially because they have those Vikings. That allows them to have a much heavier rotation. So we're going to pay attention to where those scouting drones are. They're going to be in between the two lanes, just making sure that they have vision of where those extra members from 2Arc are going to be rotating to try get those early kills.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a good way to shut down that Kerrigan aggression, but it looks like both teams are very passively putting 3 members in the bottom lane, but Panucci can blindly go forward and lay down a combo, and there's a fair amount of damage available for Furious D and Chubbs. So we'll see what they can do. Panucci's just lying in wait. They have no idea he's sitting in this bush right now.
Absolutely, and that's a big deal. And there it is, the pull. They do manage to hit 2 members of Cloud9 Vortex. Not going to end up with a follow-up for a kill. I'm not really sure that the damage output is there, but it really kind of keeps them on their toes. And they're just saying, okay, all right, we see you, we respect that. That's fine. We'll play a little bit further back. And again, just pay attention to where those heroes are rotating to get that early lead.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the top lane, the Vikings are currently sitting all together, and we talked about their potential to split up. When the tribute spawns, typically around the 2-minute marker, a little bit later, we'll see the Vikings actually split up and try to soak multiple lanes at once. This allows the enemy team, or allows the team with the Vikings to have a little bit more presence over that tribute fight.
Yeah, absolutely. We can expect to see that first tribute spawning anywhere between the 2-minute and 15-minute mark and 2-minute 45-second mark. So we're perhaps going to see that rotation from the Vikings at that point. Of course, Fan here, we saw this last game. They're taking the early mercenary camps, and they use this to dictate a bit of map control. They know the timing. You see, look at this. They're just going to finish taking that mercenary camp right around when that first tribute spawns. So this is sort of a way to battle back. A hold on a second. Zix actually gets stunned out from the Kerrigan. The follow-up is there this time. They pick up the first kill. 2Arc Gaming with a bit of an early lead. Look at that, almost a half level going into the first tribute.
And look at this, they pick up a kill. They use the far sight. That was picked up by Rhaegar at level 4 to reveal where Illidan was. They know that's what Illidan's like to do, and they move forward and they steal these giants. So not only did he spend a lot of time doing that, they lost out on having that presence forward, but Illidan is going to try to get aggressive onto Chubbs. The Blizzard is raining down from Jaina, but not quite enough. This is a full-out retreat by 2Arc. Panucci standing in that healing ward. It's almost enough to keep him alive, but no, he will end up falling 1-to-1 in terms of kills, and even Olaf loses his life in the top lane.
That is the power of Illidan. We were talking about his ability to just run forward, provide that chase, and it just kind of seemed like he wasn't dying. They were kiting him all the way back, but they just weren't able to provide that damage output, and Trader with Eric ends up falling. He's able to pop that evasion, doesn't end up taking too much damage from the turrets. First tribute of the game going to 2Arc during all of this distraction.
Yeah, I mean, things are all over the map right now, but like you mentioned, that first tribute did go to 2Arc, so it's a small win. Right now, the experience just slightly in their favor. Those Vikings are being sure to soak all across the map, but Panucci is looking to continue this aggression. He's got that combo. He has 2 targets in his sight, and they're both quite squishy.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some of the level 4 talents that were picked up. Oh, and they're using that Haunting Wave at the very last second to get out for Syracuse. Nicely played. Double Envenom once again for Cloud9 Vortex. Panucci, is he going to be able to dive on? Nope. Zix was the target before. They had the Envenom up, and that is probably going to be the target they will try to pick again. They lay in wait. Do you see how passively they're playing? They realize they respect this potential.
But I love this position on the scouting drone. It's just within range of the turret. So if you try to destroy it, you're going to take damage from the turret. But it also gives you vision of this bush. But dashing forward, the Pixie Dust is used by Zix to go up and juke that Primal Grass combo that he tried to do. But the body blocks out of Chuds. just giving them that aggression they need and giving them the extra time to lay out some damage. That's going to force Zix to actually hearth back home, but he can phase shift right back into battle.
Yeah, won't be out of the game for too long. Fan once again looking to take these mercenary camps. Is 2Arc going to be a little bit more keen to this like they were the previous mercenary camp? It ended up buying them a lot of time. Actually, Sylvanas ends up getting picked up in the middle lane. Crazy.
Yeah, they were rotating up and they caught a lone Sylvanas, and that's the thing about Kerrigan. She's got that double stun combo, and Sylvanas relies on sending that Haunting Wave out, waiting a small amount of time before it actually gets to the, destination that you would like, and then just pinning her down with the stun to make it so that she cannot escape.
Both of the games that we've had Kerrigan run from both of these teams, and Cleanse has been picked from either of the opposite supports just to make sure that they have a check on that crazy Kerrigan combo. It just goes to show you how strong it can be in the early game.
It's quite a big talent to pick up there, but Zix doesn't use it in time, and he's getting hit by that full combo. The Envenom goes down, but he's very low. Polymorph used on Chubbs for him to escape, and he will be able to stay alive, but once again, he's going to have to go back to base. His health pool quite low. He does have the regeneration, and he's opting to stay around. This could be a risk.
It looks as though 2Arc isn't going to stay too much longer. Of course, the combo is available for Kerrigan. They don't want to overstep their bounds. Vikings actually taking quite a bit of damage in the top lane. Illidan can be quite the nuisance for the Vikings players just because of how much of an ability he has to stick onto those heroes with few escapes.
I mean, this is a pretty big fight. Putting ETC and Illidan in the top is putting a lot of resources up there just against the Vikings, but it's so they can get additional experience by taking out these structures. By eliminating those towers, that'll help them catch up to hit level 10, because right now, 2Arc is sitting on 2 tributes, and they have those level 10 heroics available. This could net them a curse.
I think it absolutely will. The smart play for Cloud9 Vortex is to just back up, give up the curse. I know that it seems kind of crazy. Look, they realize it. They recognize it. They are going to just end up pushing in the top lane. They just need to take advantage of what they have. They know that if they try to take a team fight, it's probably going to end up being disastrous for them.
Well, Kubi, now that we have the first curse of the game, let's just quickly explain what it does. It actually disables the enemy team's towers, forts, and the minions are reduced to just 1 HP. This allows your lanes to just be pushed on their own and for you to get aggressive as you want. And through all of this, not only is 2Arc doing a lot of damage, but they picked up a kill on Jaina.
Absolutely. This game is all about 2Arc gaming so far. Level 10 has been picked up, of course, for Cloud9 Vortex, like we mentioned. We do see the stage dive on ETC, Water Elemental, of course. The Blink Kill, that's an interesting grab, especially when they're dealing with Kerrigan, who has the Maelstrom, might end up jumping into the middle of the fight. I think Emerald Wind would have been a very nice way to control that. Blink Kill, in this case, going to provide quite a bit more HP to the team.
There is the stage that we talked about going into the bottom lane. Water Elemental being used to lock down Panucci, and Panucci is in a very tight spot. Not sure if the support's going to come in time. And no, that will be a nice pickup here by Cloud9. But during all of this, we have 2Arc pushing forward. They eliminated this middle lane. We still have Balog in the top, taking out towers, but not only is he here doing structure damage, he's actually soaking that lane, and we can see a 2-level advantage in favor of 2Arc.
Not only a 2-level advantage, that is a talent tier advantage. Some of the most impactful talents are picked up at this level. Once again, we see the Feral Lunge, the sprint on Kerrigan for the extra mobility would have done them quite a bit of work to try to get out of that position in the last fight. Of course, no matter, they recognized the spot that Kerrigan was in. She was going to fall. They were going to take the advantage elsewhere, continue soaking, and find themselves at this nice level advantage.
Well, right now we have both teams just kind of splitting across the map, trying to get some of those mercenaries to give themselves some presence on the map, and they've had this nicely placed healing ward for a little bit of time. Brightwing put that up here to see if this boss was safe to do, and Trader just stepped in the circle. That's going to say, hey, guess what? We're checking. We're making sure that you cannot take that boss free of charge, and it's a lot of just fancy footwork right now.
Absolutely. As the game goes on, we start to see that this becomes more of a contention point. The strafe is going out the shielding just in time. Taza might be able to get out of. He's running behind the fort. Has Panucci overextended to get the combo there? The cleanse is actually almost enough to get him out, and Zix is going to be able to run away just in time. ETC gets picked up in that last fight. What a crazy chase from 2Arc.
That was really well done. I thought Brightwing was going to be able to do it. She used everything in her kit to try to keep ETC alive, but it wasn't quite enough. Giants have arrived, the fort has fallen, and that is a hero down. That is the warrior down. But Tuark is going to try to take this boss. 5 seconds and ETC is up, and stage dive is still available. Do they try to set up for this?
We see that they are starting to close in on this position. Jaina is still half a map away. We might see that ring pop up. That would be ETC diving in. No, they're actually not going to end up spending the resources to do so. This provides Tuark so much map control. This golem is so strong. You have to respond to it. Yes, you can see that right now. Vortex is already starting to agglomerate in the top lane. This gives Tuark so much time to run down. They can clean up that wave in the bottom lane, the mercenary camp, and take the golem themselves.
Yeah, you'll notice they walked right by that tribute spawning. They don't need it. The current status on the tributes you can see in the bottom right, 0-0 right now, so they don't really have to worry about a curse. Picking up this boss is far more valuable as it gives them so much flexibility across the map for either pushing with the golem or split pushing across the map.
I can't believe they're making this warrior list composition work so well. The previous game was so much back and forth. This game, it looks even stronger for Tuark. Are they going to set the meta here with this no warrior? We just put all of our faith into Kerrigan or Illidan, whoever happens to be on the team, and just make sure that we have the clean mechanics to take these team fights.
I mean, that's what it's all about, Kubi. Bringing your new secret strats to the table when it matters most. WCA America 2015, the stakes have never been higher, and we see Tuark coming out with these crazy strats. This boss has reached it to their bottom keep, and we'll see what they're able to do with it. But notice,
yes,
Brightwing and ETC, they have global presence, they're across the map.
Just about to bring that up. I like this play. We see that they need to get that split soak, and the stage dive is going in. Brightwing is going to be able to space shift in, and we're going to see Panucci dive in.
Yeah, Trader in the backline, though, with that longboat raid, has just been laying out the damage onto just about everything he can. The boat will end up falling, but so does the keep. Fan gets caught by the Vikings. They use spin and win on all three hitting at once. It's a massive amount of burst damage, picking up a kill. It's 16-14 in terms of levels. Everything is looking like Tuark.
25 seconds before Illidan is back up. Not quite enough of an advantage for Tuark to push in to take the win, but they know that they have the map control. They continue rotating around, taking control of these mercenary camps. They can back up, yes, and they can take this tribute. They have the triple blood for blood on their side. This talent tier advantage kind of gives them immunity to... Vortex is not going to try to take any fights with them because of this disadvantage. They know that they can almost split up, and we see them doing just a little bit of that right now.
Yeah, they are actually everywhere. They're getting that tribute. They just cleaned up those mercenaries in the middle lane, and now they're picking up the Giants, the one mercenary camp available on the map right now. They have a 2-level lead, the talent advantage. Everything is looking great.
Yeah, we talked about some of the mobility that the members of Tuark have. We see that prescience and then dimensional warp available. That makes Tassadar so difficult to kill. Of course, that shield for the Vikings, again, so difficult to pick up kills on them. And then the triple blood for blood, even more survivability. If picking up single members of Tuark was difficult before, it's almost impossible now. They're going to have to make sure that the positioning is super on point for Cloud9 Vortex.
And Tuark is being sure to take advantage of this small window when there's no level 16. They get the Primal Grasp onto Jaina, but it's not quite enough with the follow-up. But it's still going to net them 2 towers, which is a fair amount of experience.
I love that play. That was just Kerrigan, just a bear rattling the cage, just saying like, hey, I can kill you at any time. Respect the positioning that I have. We realize we have this talent advantage, but hold on, ETC diving in.
But we do have that longbow raid in the backlane once more, and Jaina just focuses down so quickly. Did almost no damage, but doesn't matter. Fan is forced to use Metamorphosis, but before he can even use it, we do have ETC falling. Panucci gonna end up going down, but Fan is in full-on retreat. 1-for-1 in terms of kills, but Illidan, he cleans up like we mentioned. Chubbs is throwing everything he has out for those heals, and man, it is just trades back and forth.
They weren't able to deal with the Illidan fast enough, and yes, he backed up, but once he had his cooldowns reset, once he gets that evasion back up, he's able to get back into the fight, and there's so many targets that aren't really dealing a huge amount of DPS, but he's getting that lifesteal back. A big deal. We saw the cleanse be thrown down on him into the middle of the last fight. That was huge in helping him to stay alive, maneuver around to where he wanted. That gets to, Cloud9 Vortex back into this game.
Now this is actually quite risky right now. Illidan is currently in the top lane. They can see that. He was just cleaning up the minions. He's making his way down, but ETC is also back alive. So both teams are just posturing, trying to deny the enemy team that tribute pickup. because it's 1-to-1. If you pick this up, that's going to put you on deck for a curse.
Absolutely, and they can use that position to their advantage. Chubb's actually getting isolated a little bit out of position, and he still had the Ancestral up. That was a huge part of them being able to take this team fight. Yes, they have to go into full retreat. They lost one of their huge trump cards in that fight. Traitor losing one of the Vikings' Balog falls. This puts them in full retreat. Cloud9 Vortex really starting to swing back and take control of this game.
Yeah, the positioning there was just a little bit too aggressive. I don't know if they didn't expect Cloud9 to come from the top lane like that. They probably expected the normal path, if you just click, coming more from the right. But we saw that rotation coming down the top was just what they needed to pick up those kills. Very nicely done. That puts them in position for the first time in this game to take a boss.
Yes, and it looks like they're going to be able to do just that. They don't have the huge mobility that Cloud9 Vortex has through that phase shield, through the stage dive to try to interrupt this. That's just, the possibility isn't there. Yes, we see them rotating up, but this golem is more than half gone. They're going to be able to take it in time. Taza, we see the Clairvoyance go down. Panucci not quite going to have the backup of the rest of the team. They just wanted to keep an eye on this and move forward.
But I guess a big part of the story here is the fact that these catapults have been in the bottom lane. This bottom lane has pushed itself for quite a while, and it's something that Cloud9 has to be constantly aware of and constantly thinking about. Levels are currently even. This would be a curse for Cloud9, and that's why we see the stage dive going in. Ancestral used very early onto Quibsy. There's the Maelstrom for Kerrigan, but the shielding isn't quite enough. The Blood for Blood's coming out onto Taza still. No kill picked up. Panucci will end up falling. We see that the Vikings are falling one after another, but Brightwing is also down. Fan, though, he has so much health left. Every time he deals damage, he heals himself even more.
That's right, Fan looking to try to get the cleanup on this C9 Vortex again for maybe the third team fight in a row, looking really solid. They're just, it's almost a little bit uncharacteristic of them to have such a strong control of the late game. They're just known for this team that takes a strangling grasp of the early game and runs with it. But they're showing that they have the potential to make these comebacks.
They're looking good in the comebacks, but the story of the push is the same. Those Knights walk down that middle lane, which was already pushed out for them, taking out the middle keep. Bottom keep has had those catapults even starting to chip away at the shields. Now the shields regenerate. Core health hasn't been touched yet, but the threat is still there.
Absolutely. It looks as though Cloud9 Vortex is opting to just run back, take whatever advantage they have and turn it into mercenary camps. They could have opted to go for the golem, but I wonder if there's a little bit hesitant in that late game decision making. Right, the last game they made a snap call. They said we're going for the core. We're going to take it down. That is an area going for that golem. You can lose the game right there if you don't position yourself perfectly. Yes, they had the two heroes down, but if they didn't approach it just right, they could lose the game in the series. That's it. They're out.
Yeah.
If they lose this game, Cloud9 Vortex is out of the qualifier.
But let's look at this here. Cloud9 is opting to go for this bottom boss region, throwing 4 members down there. This is them giving up a curse. They're just flat out saying, go ahead, take the curse, we can deal with it. We just want to have this boss pushing down the bottom lane to provide us some aggression. But the bottom 4 has yet to even be destroyed.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I think they're probably just going to look to take some split push pressure. We see the stage dive.
And yeah, ETC going in on the backline. Bobby Henkel uses that Bolt of the Storm. Both teams are 20. Fan getting very low, uses Metamorphosis, and there's the Ancestral used on Chubbs by himself. But the Vikings in the backline, they have been able to put a fair amount of pressure on, but Zix is not going to be able to get out of this one. Oh my goodness, the blink to escape. Fan running the other direction. It is a full-on scramble for Cloud9 Vortex, but Vala is the only one that has fallen this game on the side of Tuark.
Absolutely. Fan once again able to just sort of weave in and out of these fights, and it's been crazy that he's been able to dodge that. Now we saw the Ancestral not quite on point for Tuark, and also I thought that the Maelstrom was popped very early, and Chubbs on the chase. They really want to try to even out this advantage, and the blink heal going to the creep. They want to make sure he's able to get out.
Wow.
He hearts out.
Wow, I can't believe it. Huge plays by Zix. That's going to allow them to stay in this game. This curse has all been but negated because Tuark spent the entire fight scrambling, trying to pick off heroes while the Golem marched down. He took out the fort. He took out this wall. Cloud9 is back in the game.
Absolutely. Level 20 talents have been picked up for both sides. Huge amount of Bolts of the Storm for Cloud9 Vortex. They really favor that mobility, and of course the Storm Shield for Brightwing. Upgraded Archon form. We see the upgraded Ragnarok and Roll. Bolt of the Storm for Kerrigan. We saw that picked up in the last fight. Storm Shield for Rhaegar. And again, of course, they want that mobility on Vala. Bolt of the Storm once more.
Jaina is trying to flank here. Illidan and Jaina, they're both available, and Trader is in a full-on retreat. If they can force him to pop that longboat raid, that would be massive. There it is, and they're burning through it very quickly. Tuark was not in position to take this fight at all. Primal Grasp is cleansed, and Illidan will be able to pop Metamorphosis, but Panucci will receive the Ancestral as he bolts on out. One Viking has fallen. Everyone's available on the side of Tuark. Zix, this time, not going to be as lucky to escape.
Crazy that they're able to keep the sustain up for both sides, and the combo is good. It hits Tazza and Sylvanas. Excuse me, Sylvanas, and they're able to pick up that kill on her. Tazza is now forced to run away. He gets the pull. Does Panucci have the Ravage? He's going to throw down that Maelstrom. Does he have Bolt Up? Probably not. It was used in the last fight, and actually he's able to Ravage on. That's going to be enough damage. That's 4 members of Cloud9 Vortex, and once again, a crazy late game scenario. 2R Gaming is going to take a 2-0 victory. They will move on to the semifinals.
I can't believe it, Kubia. I mean, it just looks so back and forth. A huge party bush attempt, just spreading their team out, trying to pick off the Vikings very early, but 2R kept their composure. They kept it together. They took that fight with only losing 1 Viking, and they take that series 2-0, and they will advance to the semifinals.
Absolutely crazy turnarounds. It just kind of seemed like in that late game especially, Cloud9 Vortex just had a huge amount of control over how those fights were going, and it just seemed like they needed 1 or 2 more of those fights before, they were able to push back that advantage. But like we saw, Kerrigan with the chase, it was just too much for Cloud9 Vortex to deal with, and they find themselves dropping out 2-0 very early in this qualifier.
I mean, let's talk about Kerrigan a little bit more. That was a warrior-less composition, back-to-back 2 games in a row with no warrior, and they made it look so decisive, especially the early game. I mean, quite often we see the early game where the warriors are just sitting in lane soaking, just being kind of passive. But no, not in this game. There was no warrior for Tuark. They used that time to get ahead. Each game, we saw Tuark with almost a full level lead. Such decisive, interesting play.
Absolutely, and they were able to draw that last fight out enough to get multiple sets of combos off, which is so important because honestly, Kerrigan, a lot of times when she just pops the Maelstrom, she gets into the fight and it just throws the 1 combo down and that's it. Her utility seems to drop off right after that, but if you can drag the fight out enough to get 2 sets of stuns, that is huge, and that really ended up playing a huge part in having the control to push forward with that 4-hero advantage.
Well, congratulations to Tuark on advancing to the next round. But up next, we have Cloud9 Maelstrom versus Stellar Lotus. So guys, hop on social media, use the hashtag WCA2015 to let us know who you think's going to win, and feel free to tweet at myself, SolidJakeGG, and the Kubi on Twitter. We'll be back in just a bit with Cloud9 versus Stellar Lotus.